small or medium-sized business owner, do I really need a lawyer if I'm not being sued? All right, welcome to part 3 of this question. In part 1, we discussed reasons why attorneys can be a wonderful resource to small business owners in a variety of ways outside of the obvious litigation matters. And in part 2, I went through the various stages of entity formation, registration, and filings, and suggested that you can handle most of these matters yourself. I hope you're encouraged to at least try to handle some of those tasks independently. Although, of course, if you are truly confused, overwhelmed, or just can't be bothered, it's far better to incur the short-term expense of having a lawyer do it for you than suffer the long-term cost if something is done incorrectly or not at all. If you go back and check out part 1 of this series, you might feel like these videos contradict themselves. Like, should I or should I not handle contracting matters myself, for example? But they really are compatible. Part 1 recommends using a lawyer to get the right foundation in place. In the commercial contracting example, your lawyer helps you develop a strong master services agreement that you present to all clients and vendors, with details and exceptions entered into a separate statement of work, the form of which the lawyer also developed. Maybe the lawyer even developed contract negotiation guidelines in the event a vendor pushes back on the terms. And now, in this part 3, we're going to tell you, use what your lawyer did. If you have a strong foundation in place, you won't necessarily need your lawyer to review every single MSA, SOW, or purchase order. You can use the contract negotiation guidelines to resolve 80 or 90% of bargaining points with your vendor, and then maybe at most you need to pull your lawyer in on the rare occasion that there's a true impasse, and then it's only for a few quick questions and revisions rather than starting over from scratch. Please watch all 3 parts of this series in conjunction with this intention in mind. So, with that said, let's get into the question of the day. What legal and legal adjacent items might you be able to handle yourself now that your business is operational? Basic commercial contracts. So as I just discussed with the master service agreement template example, you don't necessarily need to have a lawyer read through every single agreement that you sign. Having standard forms that are created by a lawyer who understands your business, your industry, your risk tolerance, and your needs will streamline your entire contracting process. At least 80% of the time, you'll be able to handle modest contractual negotiations independently as long as the right foundation is in place. Of course, if there's a particularly high cost or high risk deal, that would be a good time to loop in the lawyer. But you can still work out all the business terms yourself, and the lawyer's involvement and billing can be limited to legal issues only, things like indemnification, liability caps, warranties, and so forth. Day-to-day HR tasks. Similarly, if your attorney has created a basic employment agreement, an independent contractor agreement, separation or severance documents, and perhaps also an employment policy handbook, you should be able to handle the majority of your HR tasks without the attorney's direct involvement. Keep an open line of communication with your lawyer, but outside counsel generally shouldn't need to weigh in on hiring, onboarding, performance review, and separation decisions or processes. Copyright and trademark registrations. Some IP lawyers might disagree, but my perspective is that your average business owner is often capable of filing his own basic copyright and trademark registrations as needed, assuming that there are no complicating factors like authorship disputes, conflicting registrations, or a substantial similarity to existing marks. Regardless of your general opinion on the government, it does seem like our friends at the USPTO and Copyright Office have tried to make the registration portals reasonably user-friendly, even for first-time registrants and people without a law degree. Corporate record keeping. Corporate record keeping is something that small business owners absolutely can handle by themselves. It's more a question of will they. I've seen brilliant, sophisticated, and otherwise diligent business owners allow their record keeping to devolve into a complete train wreck over the years, which isn't a problem until there's a reason that you or some other third party needs to see those records, and then it becomes a huge problem. Ask your lawyer what kind of corporate record keeping is required or prudent as a result of your entity type, state laws, and industry. Your lawyer does not need to be the one writing every corporate resolution, keeping board meeting minutes, or maintaining the shareholder ledger and other records. But if those things are required, or if they're a good idea in light of your corporate strategy or the regulations that you're subject to, Somebody needs to do it. You or somebody on your internal team is almost certainly capable. Consistency and mindfulness on your part now will save you potentially tens of thousands of dollars on unraveling and cleaning up problematic records sometime down the road when it's unavoidably necessary or it's a precondition to pursuing your other business objectives. Finally, dispute resolution. I am a big fan of business owners resolving disputes amicably between themselves whenever possible without getting lawyers involved and escalating the situation, and without parties incurring absurd amount of legal fees, ensuring that both sides ends up losing, regardless whoever actually prevails in the particular matter being disputed. I've lost track of how many times I've received a frantic phone call from someone who's ready to go scorched earth, only to learn that they haven't yet so much as verbally expressed their displeasure to their business partner or outside vendor, much less tried to talk out a conflict that was quite conducive to being talked out. Now, with that said, even if your lawyer isn't going to be drafting demand letters or threatening litigation, when substantial sums of money or other significant business risks are involved, it's a good idea to keep your lawyer apprised of what's transpiring. You might even have her review written communications before you send them and so forth to ensure that you aren't boxing yourself into an undesirable legal position in the event the matter can't be resolved through negotiation and compromise. A good lawyer is going to help you help yourself. Unfortunately, there are also enough lawyers out there who will try to convince you that they are the only one who can or should handle everything, and they will egregiously run up your bill in the process. Find a lawyer who can help you set up a strong foundation upon which to build your empire, one that will allow you and your team to handle the day-to-day and mundane internally as much as you can. And then you can still rely on that lawyer for especially complex, high stakes, and other non-standard matters. Business owners, how do you divide labor for legal related business matters between yourself and your internal team and your external advisors?